Alrighty, everybody. My name's Kevin. I'm the senior salesman at Clover, meaning I'm the old guy. I've done this for roughly 39 years. Came off this counter, learned all this closing stuff and other things, and made my way through this. I pride myself on trying to give you clear, proper answers to chemistry or your pool issues. What we're talking about today is pool closing. Very important people catch that the first thing to close a pool correctly is that it needs to be in swimming condition when we do it. If your pH and alkaline is off, the pool is green, whatever, you can guarantee it's going to open up that way, probably worse. So you do want to balance your swimming pool. We've had a lot of rain lately. If you would like some assistance, you reach an elbow deep and cap a jar of water. We will test it and make sure everything's correct before you shut that pool down. When you close a pool down, we want proper balances of the water. We also want a proper chlorine level. I'm not the biggest fan of dumping gallons of chlorine in a pool and throwing a cover on it. That usually results in bleaching the liner. Okay? Comes down to that what we're going to explain today is to save you some hassle, make things a bit easier for you, and quite frankly, take away some wives' tales such as hanging jugs off covers is not supposed to happen. You go from there, starting with the chemical side of things. The pool is properly balanced. We've got a proper chlorine level. You can dive in and swim today. It's in good shape to close. What we need to do first is take out all the interior things that could get broken with expanding ice. So your ladder steps, your ladders, out of the pool they go, okay? From there, instead of going through and dousing a swimming pool with gallons of liquid chlorine and bleaching the liner out, we have recommended for nearly the 40 years I've been here that you use dry chemicals that are specifically made to winterize a pool. That means in English, it's cold water. The metals can leave the water and leave you a nasty stain on your liner. There's things suspended in your pool that there's something in that kit that basically drops them down to the floor. So in the spring, if you can just vacuum it out and get the business. From there, there's another chemical in there that takes away food that algae needs. Also helps to break down oils and other materials in the water. These kits have been done throughout the years. I see some questioning looks in the background. There are 3 separate chemicals in here. First thing to note, does not matter the order you put these in, okay? If you have a 21-foot or smaller, you're going to use this kit. If you have a 24-foot or bigger, you're going to use the larger kit, okay? In this kit, there's 3 packets, 3 separate chemicals. All we're doing is we're going to take one out, put it in a bucket of water, and pour it into our return jet stream, okay? So this way it stirs into the pool. From there, you want to do this for an hour to leave it stir, and then you go about putting in the second chemical. Okay? Again, the order doesn't matter. Dissolve it in a bucket of water, pour it into the return jet stream. Then you do the last. This is usually a process that people will do day 1 and do this over 2 days. Get the pool ready and then actually shut her down. Aspect is, while you're doing this, it's a good idea, one, when you're done with this, pool should filter about 4 hours. Let's stir them concentrated chemicals in there well. The second thing is that later on we're going to talk about putting a pillow in a pool. You should fill your pillow day 1, put it in the garage, make sure she don't leak. Okay? We're going to go back to that in a minute. But if the pool's closed chemically, okay, bottom line is that the next thing that's got to be done is that we got to lower the water down. Okay? You do not have to put a pump in there that could put a hole in your liner. Okay? You do not have to do ingenious ways of getting the garden hose running. All you simply have to do is go to your return jet on your pool, okay, which would be this guy shooting out the strong jet stream. First thing, turn off the power, pool's done. Okay? The second thing you do is you put your sand filter on closed. Okay? It's right on the top. That stops the water coming from the skimmer over to it. The return jet, okay, is hooked up to your white chlorinator. What you're going to do is you're going to take off this directional collar, which allows you to point this left, right, up, down. I took off more parts than I meant to. And you'll be left with that. Okay? It's a thread inside, kind of double threaded inside and out. Well, that piece comes out with a key. It goes in here, and you turn it, and you unthread this piece out. Okay? So now you just have this big circular opening. What you do here is there's 2 options to plug this. First one is to use a number 10 expandable rubber plug. This is how they were used in the old days. You pop this in, You turn this wing nut down nice and tight, it expands, holds inside. Problem here is extreme cold and changes of weather. This could pop out of here. Ice could catch this thing, but they tend to have issues over time. So this is not my favorite method to do this. The other method is a threaded cap. A threaded cap ain't going to unthread itself. So this goes in, it's got a rubber O-ring. This comes in nice and tight. Then we can use that key, give her a little extra turn. We blocked off this return. So what you're doing is you're going to take out these pieces, the eyeball with the collar and this interior threaded piece. You're going to put this piece in. Now the water stopped this direction. The valve shut over there. Now basically we just got the water stuck in the filter. What you're going to do from that point, get your vacuum hose, that long 30, 40 foot piece, go over to your return jet, this piece, you got your hose back here. Undo that clamp, pull that hose off, and yeah, you're going to lose a gallon of water, okay? However, slip your vac hose on there nice and firm, send that where you'd like to go, and open up the cap. Show gravity drop right down to the perfect height, the bottom of this piece, cap it again, pulls down where we need to. No pump, no siphoning, just dropped it right down. That line's 1.5 inches, which is about as big as you're ever going to drop water with instead of a garden hose or a pump. This is the best method I have ever seen to do this, okay? And I have to tell you, customer told me about this. From there, that's also going to act to block this off for winter so water can't get up here and freeze, okay? Your other part is your intake, which is your skimmer, okay? The big box on the wall. Okay? I would like you to go through and gut this thing. I want you to take the lid off, this part, get yourself a box to put all your stuff in you're about to do. This flap in here is called the weir. It's a very important component, so you know, keeps you from sucking air in a pool. It's a little pinch thing and it comes right out, okay? Take the basket out, and now we're left with an empty skimmer, okay? What'll happen? We lowered our water down. It's actually below the skimmer. But when we put the winter cover and all that on, with the ice and snow, that water's going to climb back up the wall. If it gets in here and it gradually freezes and builds, you'll get what I call the gutter effect. It's going to freeze down here, even though this was open. This whole bottom's going to fall right off the skimmer. Okay, roughly 150 bucks. Okay, what do you do to protect this? Well, the best way, the water's climbing the wall. There's actually 3 ways you can protect this. I'm going to start with the radiant people. The radiant pool uses a gizmo. Kind of sounds funny like the thingamajig, which by the way is a pool part also. This threads into the bottom of this, okay? When water gets in here, which on the radiant it will, okay, this will collapse instead of the ice pressing out and breaking this. This is how an in-ground pool is closed, okay? From there, even with the radiant pool, you can get a foam block-off plug. This is probably the most common way people block off skimmers these days. It's foam with a plastic thing that kind of press fit right in here. You line it up, pop it in, okay? To make a smaller one for the radiant, you could do that. However, the gizmo's more than enough, okay? On the traditional pools, which is most of the rest of us, this will go right into your skimmer. You could use a gizmo. I'm not as fond of the gizmo on this. The radiant pool's a rigid wall. Ain't nothing taking that thing down ever. I would prefer block-off plates on a skimmer, okay? From there, they make other methods to do this, okay? This is probably the preferred by people through the decades, kind of like a Tupperware top method. What this involves is that on the inside of your swimming pool, you see the picture frame part, up against your liner. Okay, then we got the liner and the wall and some gaskets back in between. But you've lowered your water down, disconnect your hoses from your filter, this plastic piece is on the wall. All we need to do, if you'd like to do this method, is you're going to take all the screws out of that picture frame as somebody hold the skimmer. This is not a difficult thing, so you know it all. The screw holes in your liner are not going to move, okay? All you do is you replace their picture frame with this guy's. You put the screws in staggered, and you hand tighten them for the final tightening, okay? Bottom line is now, though, every year you can go out there in seconds. And literally, this is a Tupperware type top. This snaps on a lip on this thing, and quite frankly, when the water comes up here, she ain't getting in here. but this is, you peel this on and off for winter, okay? This means you got to do a little extra, and some people are a little nervous about this. Believe me, you shouldn't be. Bottom line is, though, this is going to have to be replaced. It's foam and a plastic piece every so often. This you'd have for years. We put this in a pre-done kit for you guys so that, you know, if you used what I would recommend, you got everything you should have. You know, if you prefer to do this method, just let us know when we swap these out, okay? The idea there, though, I mentioned before, water is going to rise. When you close a swimming pool, if you close it at the bottom of the return jet, I'll guarantee in the spring you go out there and you take off the lid, you're going to find out the water's actually below that. What happens is the water's 8 pounds a gallon, you got that big surface area, snow, leaves, rain are just going to build on there, that weight's going to cause the pool to look higher. Well, the water below is coming up too. It's the same level as the top of that cover. Bottom line is, cover gets up here, water's going over the wall. So you lose water every year. It turns out that the water in this area is phenomenal water. When you refill your pool, you're actually helping the thing because it's immaculate water. So in English, it's common that you're going to find that you need to add usually 1.5 feet, 2 feet of water in the spring, okay? Doesn't mean you had a leak, okay? Now, the next step to this would be we need to winterize the pool itself, okay? The pool itself, starting with support. What we're going to do in general is we are going to take a cover and we're going to take that cover, we're going to put it over the rail so it comes down a bit, okay? It's going to come over the rail, it's going to dip down to the water, it's going to come over the pillow, back down to the water, back over the rail, and over the side. And we got a cable that kind of wraps that whole thing together, okay? Starting with the middle of this thing. It's actually pretty important that people do support the interior of a pool, okay? You get a lot of negative comments from people through the years about pillows. Well, the pillow goes flat. The pillow don't work. You don't need it. Well, you do. The purpose for it is two main things. All that water at 8 pounds a gallon and all this going up the side, you don't have support in the middle. It's all going right down the middle of the pool. Good luck getting that out of there in the spring, okay? From there, it also causes excessive pull on the top of your pool, okay? You got all this weight pulling here and it's just doing this to it. We really don't want that. The aspect is if you do the pillow correctly, which means we fill this the day before, at least the day before we're going to do this in advance. We're going to fill it taut with the shop vac usually. From there, you cap it and you leave it alone for 24 hours. Make sure she don't leak, okay? After you do that, you should be taking out 1/4 to almost 1/3 of the air out of here so it's puffy. Why does the pillow break in the winter? You got a full-size balloon in there with all that water pressing on. Something's got to give. Well, the pillow pops. You leave it puffy. So then we end up with support and we got some give and we end up popping the balloon, okay? So the aspect of that is about securing it. Well, securing the pillow, they'll have rubberized, I should say, I think they're rubber, grommets in 2 of the corners of the pillows, diagonal, okay? Most people have gotten some twine out, kind of tied it to it, looped it over the top seat, tied it there so it would stay in the middle, still moves around a boatload, get all frustrated. The other thing it does is when you put the cover on, because you got string coming up here to the top seats, you pied the pool off. It's not a channel down there, you raised it up, now you got some deeper spots. So in English, they make a piece that is a Velcro peel and stick that goes right on the center of the pillow. You marry that to the middle of the cover. You can pick up the cover and the pillow all together and put it right on the pool. No strings. What ends up happening now, it's called the pillow pal. Okay? What happens now is that we end up with a perfect channel around the pool. You guys can pass it around and get a look-see at that real quick. But the picture you're seeing there, that's what we're looking for. Sorry. Now, that actually will allow us that center support, okay? We're going to go back on the pillow in a second. You'll notice as you look at that piece, we got the cover going over the sides, which your covers, if you're new pool people, your covers are here. We have them all put aside for you. We're probably collecting them while we're doing the meeting. The covers are on a traditional pool, okay? The Radiant's different. The traditional pool is very heavy, like tarping material. Is nylon reinforcement, and then they put grommets together in groups of 2. roughly, I don't know, every 3 or 4 feet apart. Then they're using a wire cable that's wrapped with nylon, and they are threading it through these grommet holes. The first thing you need to know about this is that you have these two close together, and then way over here you got another group. The cable should disappear between this short group of two. It should be exterior between one group of grommets going to the next. You follow? So it's not going to show. It's going to be under here on the pool. It's going to come out here, and all the way around we go through and we put this cable. Okay? Once we get all the way around the pool, the cable is held with something called a turnbuckle. This is a turnbuckle, okay, a little crank thing. Turnbuckle has holes on each end, and then this turning part in here, it's the buckle they call that, has a hole through the whole thing. We take the cable, like your shoelaces, we run it through this hole, through the crank hole, and out the other end. We marry the other cable right through the other end. Pull it like your shoes, give it a quick turn, clip off the extreme excess. Don't take it all off, but clip off the extra footage, and now you can crank down your cover, okay? You want to crank this down rather well, okay? Because this is something that actually the cable will stretch on you during the winter, and something you're going to hear me talk about in a minute is we're going to go out and tighten this, okay? But this is what holds the cable down, okay? From there, we've successfully lowered the water. It's chemically correct. You got your pillow in the middle, you got your cover on, you got your cable tightened. Now you need to put a little bit of water in the channel to keep them blowing around the wind. I'm going to address radiant for a minute. We're going to go back to about the cover and the wind. With the radiant pool, that cover is different. That cover actually snaps in under the top seats, and like a little V-type thing. It locks right in place. Aspect there is that basically that particular pool, you could drive a truck into it, it wouldn't go down. It's not needed of water for support. We lower that down. In all honesty, there's really nothing to be concerned about with those pools. There's no tug on the outside because of the way that they come in. That covers all interior. It can't slip off as far as come up the wall and slide in like other covers. But you're going to find it just snaps into a channel all the way, just like your liner does. There's a channel right above where the liner goes in, under the top seat, it just pops right in there, okay? Other than that, the pillow, as far as for cleanup purposes, not a bad idea, not necessarily a necessity on a radiant. You go from there. You put water on these covers to help keep them down now. You know, we had some pretty good winds yesterday. It was a rather nice day, but really windy. Aspect is it can cause people some problems with the covers, especially when you first put them on. So a couple things happen here. One, we're going to get a lot of rain and all that after you've covered the pool and you put your pillow on and all that. However, you get between the time of Halloween and Thanksgiving, our weather's not bad. The leaves are all down. We've had a lot of rain. It's about to turn into snow. What I recommend to people is this. I would put roughly 6 feet of garden hose in the big puddle of the pool cover. Go back to that spigot, turn it on, like I'm going to fill water into the pool, okay, or the cover. You got to get the air out of it's what that's about. Once it starts to put water on that cover, turn off the spigot, make sure that the hose is underwater on the cover, disconnect the hose from the spigot, put it on lower ground, and it will automatically siphon its way out. I'll do that and walk away for days. I don't care how long it takes. I just want the excessive water off. I want the air to dry the leaves that are on there. So I don't end up with a big pile of muck and mess in the spring that I got to try to get off the pool without dumping it in. If we get rid of the leaves now, or excuse me, before the turn of the year, bottom line is the spring, the whole thing's under less stress in the winter, and boy, in the springtime, it's a lot easier to open up that swimming pool. People have had problems with leaves and have not gotten them off during the winter would appreciate this method. If you leave them dry, you might be fortunate enough where you get the blower out and blow them off the pool. However, we sent a nylon brush out with all those pools and their maintenance kits. Put it on the telescopic pole, broom those darn leaves out of there. You'll thank yourself in the springtime, okay? So we really would like to alleviate some of the load of the excessive water at that time. And let's get the garbage off the pool, okay? Outside of that, you need to winterize the filter. The filter of the pool, actually a very simple thing. We already disconnected the skimmer from the motor. Here in the front it would have come, right here. You should take pictures of the filtering area before you do anything. Make sure you know what was hooked up to what. Okay, it'll save you a lot of harassment in the springtime. From there, all vinyl hoses should be disconnected, should be put in an area where sunlight is not going to be beaming on these. I always recommend people consider the basement as one of the best storage places for pool parts and pieces. The reason being, consistent temperatures, and you don't have a lot of dark areas where you could get mold and other things, from putting them in. The garage, be very cold. You want to be careful of different parts and pieces. Does anybody have a cartridge filter here? You do. Okay. YouTube? Okay. Address that for one moment. The cartridge filter actually is a pretty simple filter to winterize. And this would apply to the other ones too as far as the motor. Right off the bat, in the back side of that motor, you have a copper wire coming in there. There's a little flathead set screw that you undo. The wire slips right out. That'll free your motor so you actually could take it off. Okay? You take off your hoses, you disconnect, how do you put it? Well, in the case of the cartridge, you weave the filter completely together. You disconnect your hoses, you take off that lid, pull the cartridge out of there. It's got a drain cap on the bottom, I'm sure that you would know of, that you drain that out. But I've always taken the cartridge filter right into the basement. I kept mine in the laundry room. I left the lid open. I put the cartridge in the stationary tub with some cartridge cleaner. I happen to think about it, go flip it over a week later and let it clean some more. Point is, eventually let that air dry out, put it back in the cylinder, leave it open. Okay? Let's not seal things up. A couple reasons for that. One, most things have rubber parts, and you probably fought to get this lid off sometime, or your chlorinator lid. Those should be lubed with something called water lubes so that it's easy to get these rubber things apart. But consistent temperatures help to promote a longer life on that stuff. I would put all of that in the basement. And by the way, that weighs what the plastic motor does. Literally, it's lifting the motor. So that is the safest way. You go from there, that pool is closed down at that point. Okay? The sand systems. When people disconnect all this stuff to lower their water and these different things, obviously the filter ain't running anymore. You might as well just disconnect your hoses if it's blocked off. But you open up this drain cap down here, take it completely off and throw it in your box. Okay? From there, the valve on a above ground, you put this on winterize. What that does is that basically it keeps this from pressing down on the gasket inside and indenting it. If we leave it like this for the winter, this is going to deteriorate this. We put it up where it's not going to be pressing down on the gasket in there. And there's a function right up here that says winterize, this little indentation. That's what that's for. This is to promote a longer, useful function out of this valve. You'll end up getting seeping and such with years out of this. It's because this gasket starts to deteriorate. Call it a spoke gasket. But you put it on this position, you just leave the tank drain. Okay? Disconnect the motor. The motor could stay out there. I'm not a fan of that. There's a little drain thing down here in the front of the motor that you can open up. Okay? Let the water out of here. Most people will put a little non-toxic antifreeze in this if they're going to do it. I'd rather this go in the house. The motor's pretty easy to disconnect and put back on. Just it will fare better, longer in the house. Outside of that, now you got the valve in the tank, the motor's in the house. You'll hear from people, well, I'll put it in the shed, I'll put it in the garage. Well, unless your shed's heated or your garage is heated, you probably did nothing but damage the inside of the tank by trying that. This is 150 pounds usually of wet sand, which means it weighs a lot more. This has plastic parts down the interior of this thing. If you take this tank and you cock it back on the old, how do you put it, the wheeler there, that stuff inside can shift and break. You hook it up in the spring, you got sand shooting into your pool. You should have left this right where it was, okay? We take this collar off of here. It's just 2 Phillips head screws here. They unscrew. This will come off. This valve was straight off. Now you're looking at an open tank with sand down below and no drain cap. What do you do now? This is the last part of this. You get out a garbage bag where you can cover this whole thing with the exception of the drain. Get some tape or something, duct tape, make sure this doesn't come off. This will keep the gutter effect from happening again. Water that builds and freezes. Bottom line is this sand will drain completely out between now and the time we actually get freeze. Okay, there's no water going in it. There's no reason to even put antifreeze in here. It misses the underdrain. Bottom line is that we don't want the water building, getting in the sand and freezing after we shut it down. Okay, so we cover this top. Now some people just simply find something that covers it and tapes it here. I always use the garbage bag, tied it, put some tape, and it was done. Okay, that brings up one other thing you need to cover. That skimmer box. Okay, this is sitting on your pool right now after you've done what I've told you. And fundamentally, this can catch water, gradually freeze, and end up breaking in here. Okay, so what we're going to do here, so I always used to like the plastic grocery bags that nobody wants anymore. I take two of them, flip them upside down, cover this, and put the handles down here over this fitting. Okay, then I put tape up here at the top. Give me a nice firm place here that water gets there, it could freeze, but it never get down in here. Point is, this should be covered with plastic again to keep water from getting in here and freezing. Okay? So, briefly in review. Pool should be in swimming condition. Okay? All pieces such as ladders and plastic should be removed. Remember, water expands at 10% when it freezes. Okay? From there, winterizing chemicals is the optimum way to do things. However, the other methods can be done. It's just, I think they're a little more harmful to the pool. Okay. From there, you're going to lower your water down with the gravity thing by hooking your vacuum hose up to the return jet. Okay. Once the water's down, then we're going to cap off these components, the skimmer and the intake, and go through and winterize those. From there, we're going to put the pillow in the middle, put the cover down where it drapes to the water, goes over the side. We're going to tighten our cable. Okay. When we go out to siphon off the pool between Halloween and Thanksgiving, I would suggest that you go out and you take a look at where this turnbuckle is. Okay. Go to the very opposite side of the pool and go down one side and snap this cable at every one of those upright posts. Go back to the other side, do the same thing. You get back to this, you're going to find you can turn this thing a few times. That cable's going to stretch from that water weight on there, at that time, and this will allow you to get the cover back down so we don't lose the cover. It slides off in the winter. This is one of the mistakes people make. They don't realize that cable stretches. Let's talk about the jugs hanging off pools for a minute. That probably gets more clientele of mine in this building for this meeting than anything I ever say when I sell pools. I always tell them you're not supposed to do that. And everybody's, oh my God, I've seen that all through my life. The problem is this. They're doing that because of wind and cover slipping. Okay? That means, one, they don't realize that cable's stretching. They need to go out and do what I was just telling you. The second thing is that what they will do is they'll tie these jugs, aquarium jugs or whatever, off the cable. Well, swinging in the wind, going against that finish, you can bet the pool manufacturer if there's a problem. We didn't tell you to do that. It's called erosion. You don't leave things swing against the side of a finish. The second thing is a company, winter covers. This climate is bad enough for these covers, let alone pulling on these grommets down to the ground. This pulls out of here, these guys are going to tell you, we didn't tell you to do that. Well, everybody does that. No, they don't. The proper way to do this, a couple little tricks, and I'm sure that other people in the industry may have found some other things. But one is, you could take those jugs, never fill them full because you're going to break if you do, fill them part way, put them on the pool, tie them to the cable. Now I'm talking about setting it on the cover. Now when the wind comes, something heavy is there that's keeping this thing from taking off. From there, the other is that they make for swimming pools when you have decks or maybe you have an in-ground pool. The traditional cover is held down with something called a water sleeve. This brings up kind of an interesting point. Anybody have a deck on their pool already? Okay. When you build the deck, keep in mind you want the cover to go on. So you want to make sure you got some space that allows you to do that. Okay. However, you get into a real tight situation or you want to set this on the pool cover, these are how you hold down covers. You fill these things just over half full so that when they expand, again, they don't rupture. And they lay flat on the ground. They're about 8 feet long. Okay? But we take these, and if we have a deck, we run our cable all the way around, and where the deck is, we just leave the cover flap. We run the cable underneath and connect it, but we don't secure the top. You put a water tube up here on top of that, and that's what holds the cover down on the deck. The second thing is you can use this to hold it down for wind. if you fill this, and you know your wind's coming from the west, well, bottom line is on the west side of the pool, put one of these in there, loosely tie it to your cable. Now again, you got something with some weight to keep this thing from blowing the thing up off your pool. But the aspect is there's better ways than hanging jugs off swimming pools, okay? And those are just a couple, but generally those are the more common ways that people do that. They also make a shrink wrap for pools. When I first saw this, I had some mixed thoughts about this. However, I have to tell you, this is actually one of the better ways to tuck the sheet in on the bed. The reason the wind's blowing is it gets up underneath the cover, between the wall and the cover itself. Well, they make a shrink wrap, okay? That basically, we start at the top of the pool at your rail here, make sure we're above it a bit, wrap it all the way around because we're looking for it to come over. And we come down the pool a couple, 3 feet. What ends up happening, this gets pretty snug around. However, this is not biting into anything. That cover still could move, everything's still got freedom there. However, we stop that wind issue again from getting up under. One of the things here is this is probably something I would do later after wanting to tighten down that buckle, okay? However, this is actually somewhat ingenious, good idea to do. From there, basically that shuts down the pool. It allows you to get your leaves, allows you to lighten up the load. And the whole idea is, how do you put it, to have a pool opening that's a bit easier without dumping leaves in there and nasty water and all these other things. Questions?